What up, guys? I am Sa Ra Garvey and welcome to my speech analyzation segment. Last time I analyzed the Rivers of Blood speech by Enoch Powell. If you haven't seen that, you better go and watch it. But today, what we are going to be analyzing is Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey has a book called The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, and I just wanted to take some excerpts from that book and analyze them and see how relevant they are to today's civilization, just like I did with Enoch Powell. So, who is Marcus Garvey? Marcus Messiah Garvey was a Jamaican political activist. He was founder and first President General of the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, through which he declared himself Provisional President of Africa. Ideologically, a black nationalist and Pan-Africanist, his ideas came to be known as Garveyism. Now, as you may or may not see, my last name is Garvey. So this is something that is kind of close to home for me, but doesn't matter. Like I said in our last speech about Enoch Powell, it is not about the character of a person. It's about the words that they are saying and whether or not those words hold true to today, or are they just the ramblings of a narcissistic individual? So what we're going to do, we're going to take two excerpts from Marcus Garvey's book, The Philosophy and Opinions, one on race assimilation and the other on traitors, and see if they actually make sense. Race assimilation. Some Negro leaders have advanced the belief that in another few years, the white people will make up their minds to assimilate their black populations, thereby sinking all racial prejudice in the welcoming of the black race into the social companionship of white. Such leaders further believe that by the amalgamation of black and white, a new type will spring up, and that type will become the American and West Indian of the future. This belief is preposterous. I believe that the white man should be white, yellow men should be yellow, black men should be black in the great panorama of races, until each and every race by its own initiative lifts itself up to the common standard of humanity, as to compel the respect and appreciation of all, and so make it possible for each one to stretch out the hand of welcome without being able to be prejudiced against the other because of any inferior and unfortunate condition. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with Chinese people being about China, white people being about Europe, black people being about Africa, all the other races being about themselves, and then coming together to understand that they are one in the human family? What is wrong with that, I ask? What we have to understand is that these thoughts are coming from the 1920s, a time where black people, Marcus Garvey himself, saw that black people were still swinging from nooses, from trees. Now, to have this type of mindset to say, look, black people can do for black people, white people can do for white people, Chinese people can do for Chinese people, and then we all stretch out our hands and say, cool, everything's fine, sounds familiar, right? You guys know that type of speech from a man by the name of Martin Luther King. But Martin Luther King came after Marcus Garvey. Now, some people will say that Marcus Garvey, in some of his speeches, was a little bit harsh and a little bit quote-unquote reverse racist. But for me, you have to understand the time that Marcus Garvey was living in. He was living through a time where black people were still being lynched. He was living through a time where black people were just being killed just for being black. So are some of his speeches and some of the things that he said quite harsh? Probably. Some people might think they are. But I've never lived through a time where when I walk out my house one day, I could not be coming back because the KKK wanted to kill me and my wife and my children. And so that type of psychology within both people is going to stir up a lot of emotion. But let's continue. The white man of America will not, to any organized extent, assimilate the Negro, because in so doing, he feels that he will be committing racial suicide. I spoke about this in my last speech analyzation of Enoch Powell. There is a concerted effort upon white people's part to keep their gene pool pure. I do not think that is a bad thing. I do not. I understand why other races want to keep their gene pool pure. Okay? And so Marcus Garvey is saying that, look, white people en masse in America, we're talking about the 1920s now, are not going to assimilate black people all the way into their society, because they're going to need to keep their gene pool pure, essentially. And I said this in my last speech, and I've said it multiple times, about the birth dearth. The birth dearth by Ben Wattenberg goes into this. There was a real fear amongst white people of the time that they're not having enough babies, and the other darker races are going to basically breed them out of existence. This is a real fear for a lot of white people. And you know what? It's a legitimate one, I'd say. A legitimate one because white people on the globe, on a global scale, only make up around 10% of the Earth's population. And if you only make up around 10% of the global population, while the rest of the globe are POCs, people of color, Chinese, Japanese, Arab, Indian, African, and those people of color are actually what they would call dominant in their genes when they have babies with people, which means that if a white woman had a baby with an Indian man, that baby is no longer white. If a white woman had a baby with a black man, that baby is no longer white. If a white woman had a baby with a Chinese man, you'll see the Chinese in that baby. What happens is these other races of people, when they mix with the white population, their genes seem to dominate that child. And so if white people can see this, they understand both consciously and subconsciously that these other races can actually genetically dominate them. And so they need to move in a way to stop that. So I would say, just like I've said before, white people, start having more babies. I think you having more babies would eradicate a lot of your fear. I really do think that white people having white babies with white people would eradicate a lot of your fear. Now, part of the thing that I've always said where things fall down is fear and hate. Fear and hate is where things fall down. I can say I believe white people should have babies with white people. I can say I believe Chinese people should have babies with Chinese people. But if you do that, you can't do that in fear and hate. One of the major things, one of the major, I say, downfalls of white people throughout time has been their hate for other people and the way in which they express that hate. You see, I don't hate anybody. This is why I speak like this, because people may say, oh, what I'm saying, is a little bit controversial, but I don't hate anyone. I don't wish any bad on anyone, right? I wish good on people because I want to see people do the exact same thing as me. If I'm able to self-determine myself, I want to see other people self-determine themselves. I'm not saying, oh, those people can't self-determine themselves because I don't like them because of X. When you use hate, everything goes downhill, and that's when you start to gather enemies. That's my own personal opinion. It is true he illegitimately carries on a system of assimilation, but such assimilation as practiced is one that he is not prepared to support because he becomes prejudiced against his own offspring, if that offspring is a product of black and white. Hence, to the white man, the question of racial differences is eternal. What's he saying here? What he's saying is that there is an assimilation within America. However, once the assimilation happens and basically, let's say, mixed babies start to be born, a lot of white people are still prejudiced towards those mixed babies. So it doesn't make sense to have the assimilation if you are still going to be prejudiced towards the babies of that assimilation. So long as the Negroes occupy an inferior position among the races and nations of the world, just so long will others be prejudiced against them, because it will be profitable for them to keep up their system of superiority. But when the Negro, by his own initiative lifts himself up from his low state to the highest human standard, he will be in a position to stop begging and praying and demand a place that no individual race or nation will be able to deny him. That is something that I have championed for black people for so long. Black peoples need to lift themselves up off the bottom of the social economic ladder and become great. Okay, that's what I believe black peoples need to do. I don't believe black peoples need to be marching and praying and crying and doing all this kind of stuff. I just believe that black people need to get on with lifting themselves up off the bottom of the social economic ladder. And it's one of those things. What Marcus Garvey is saying here is what white people have been saying for so long to black people. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just get on with it. Pull yourself up and just get on with it. Stop complaining. And that's exactly what Marcus Garvey did. Marcus Garvey arranged 16 million in the 1920s, arranged 16 million different black peoples, lawyers, doctors, architects, engineers, the best of black society. He organized them in the UNIA and said, listen, black people, we can do better than what we're doing and we will do better. And so he made the Black Star Line, 2 huge ships that were going to be taking products from the Americas to Africa, and there was going to be trade doing that. No one in this modern day has been able to do what Marcus Garvey done. Not Martin Luther King, not Malcolm X, not Louis Farrakhan, not Noble Drew Ali, no one. And all of these people are products of Marcus Garvey. You see, a lot of people give credit, and which credit is due, to Martin Luther King. But people don't give credit to Marcus Garvey. A lot of people give credit to Malcolm X, but a lot of people don't give credit to Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey was the blueprint of all of these people. And in my personal point of view, Marcus Garvey done much more to uplift and make a powerful black nation than any of these men ever did. Now, I wanted to go into something that, for me, it resonates with what is going on today with the black man and woman within the West. And it's traitors. Now, the term traitor is used, and the term sellout is also used a lot amongst black peoples. But I don't think black peoples, a lot of the time, understand exactly what a sellout or a traitor actually is. So let's read it from Marcus Garvey's point of view. In the fight to reach the top, the oppressed have always been encumbered by the traitors of their own race, made up of those of little faith and those who generally are susceptible to bribery for selling out the rights of their own people. Now, that can be subjective, okay? The term sellout is always used, okay? It's always used for different people, but for me, Marcus Garvey set the bar for excellence for black people. What he done is that he said, listen, black people, our lawyers, our engineers, our technicians, our doctors, our nurses, all of these people, we are going to set the bar for what is called, quote unquote, black excellence. Anyone who is not setting that type of bar and is used to stop the forward movement of this is a quote unquote sellout. You see, what has happened in these days and times is that the sellout in these days and times has been flipped by people who are, in my personal opinion, the actual sellouts. The actual people who have stopped black people from advancing. The drug dealers, the whores, the people who talk about killing other black people. These, to me, are the people who have sold black people out. Because black people, to me, are people who should be striving for excellence. Anyone who stops that strive for excellence, for me, is a sellout. As Negroes, we are not entirely free of such an encumbrance. To be outspoken, I believe we are more encumbered in this way than any other race in the world because of the lack of training and preparation for fitting us for our place in the world amongst nations and races. We lack preparation and training. Marcus Garvey stated that the person who lacks preparation and training is more likely to be used and bribed in the stopping of black people advancing into quote unquote excellence. And when I look as an individual, When I look at the black people in the West, and I look at the rappers and I look at the entertainers, sell drugs and they sell murder to other black people. These to me are the people that Marcus Garvey is talking about. They have sold out, they have taken their bribes, i.e. their money, and they have been used to stop the advancement of other black peoples. They have been used to stop the advancement of quote unquote black excellence. They have been used because they have gained their individual monetary gain, and they have thought, oh look, black people have made it. No, you've just made money on the back of selling whoredom. You have just made money on the back of selling drugs. You have just made money on the back of glamorizing, killing other black people, and you think that you are not the sellout. And I'm here to tell you, as Sa Ra Garvey, those are the sellouts that we need to be pointing out within the quote unquote black community. The traitor of other races is generally confined to the mediocre or irresponsible individual. But unfortunately, the traitors amongst the Negro race are generally to be found among the men in highest paid in education and society, the fellows who call themselves leaders. Exactly. I have watched so many different people be put up on pedestals who have got there by disrespecting and killing, selling drugs to, and selling whoredom to other black people. And everyone within the black nation, not everyone, let me not say that, but some people within the black nation say, oh, those people are real dumb, real stupid, real what? I don't get it. Black people seem to glorify and glamorize the underbelly of our nation. You see, every nation has their underbelly. The Europeans have their underbelly. The Japanese have their underbelly. The Chinese have their underbelly. Everyone has their underbelly. Their whores, their drug dealers, their debauchery going on within their nation. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be a Muslim, you could be a Christian. It doesn't matter. You have an underbelly. Everybody does. The problem is that black people have pushed their underbelly to the surface and said, look, this is what it means to be black. No. Sa Ra Garvey says no. Okay? That is not what it means to be black. Pushing your underbelly to the surface is not what it means to be black. And then when you call it out, what is so amazing about the black people and how things are flipped is that black people call you a sellout. They call you a sellout for calling out the people that are selling out black people to stop them from advancing to their greatness. Anyone stopping black people advancing to their greatness, to me, is what I would call a sellout. I talk to all types of different people, and what I've noticed is that other people, like I said, do have an underbelly. They do. But everything that I'm doing is to advance black people into a different realm. I have never on this channel sold you drugs. I've never sold you debauchery. I've never sold you whore culture. I've never sold you murdering of other black people, ever. Everything that I've said and everything that I've stated is to advance other black people into a different space. But black people, a lot of them, still say that I would be a sellout, while they promote and glorify the killing of other black people and the selling of drugs to other black people and the whore culture. Everything is flipped. For us to examine ourselves thoroughly as a people, we will find that we have more traitors than leaders, because nearly everyone who essays to lead the races at this time does so by first establishing himself as a pet of some philanthropist of another race, to whom he will go and debase his race in the worst form, humiliate his own manhood, and thereby win the sympathy of the great benefactor who will dictate to him what he should do in the leadership of the Negro race. That is what I see so many black people doing today. Black people are debasing their own people in an attempt to be somebody's lapdog. Now, you can use your sexy reds, your Sukianas, your drill rappers, all of these different peoples that debase black people in an attempt to say, oh yeah, I'm black. Now, there are many black people who think being black is being quote unquote ghetto, showing just how stupid you are. Let's show people how much drugs we've sold. Let's show people how many black people we've killed. Let's show other women how great our vagina is. That's what being black is. But as somebody who has studied African history and studied it extensively, I understand that being black is understanding, as a black man and black woman, that you are the mother and the father of human civilization. All genetic evidence, all archaeological evidence, all anthropological evidence points to the fact that African black people were the fathers and the mothers of civilization. I, as a black man, understand that being black is to have the oldest mathematical device on the earth, known as the Ishango bone, dated at 25,000 years BCE. I understand that as a black man, that we have the oldest calendars on the planet. In South Africa, they call it Adam's calendar, dated at 75,000 years BC. I, as a black man, understand that Nabda Playa in East Africa is one of the oldest calendars. I, as a black man, understand that black peoples were the first peoples on the planet. And we have a great history and a rich history. We have a rich history of monument building all the way down the Nile Valley, from Nubia all the way up until Egypt. I, as a black man, understand this. This is what it means to be black to me. But what does being black mean to you? I have been Sa Ra Garvey. Thank you all for joining in as we continue to analyze these great speeches throughout time. Next time, I think I might analyze a Greta Thunberg speech and see if what she says actually makes sense.
How dare you?
How dare you? Catch you on the flip side.